Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I hope everybody had a really relaxing Christmas. If you celebrated or you were just staying cozy and enjoying the end of December, it is a really cozy night, but we woke up this morning, it was almost 80 degrees. It was so hot. My kids were wearing like shorts and tank tops to church and just roasting with the air conditioner on in the car, the air conditioner on in the house, and now it is, last time I checked, it was in the mid 40s. So throughout this day, the temperature has been dropping like crazy. By the morning, it's supposed to be 18. So that is like a 50-degree drop in 24 hours. And so it's really cozy now. You can kind of see outside, it's almost dark, but it looks snowy out there. It's not, but when I was outside, it sounded kind of like we were getting some frozen moisture, so maybe we'll wake up for some snow tomorrow. That would be so crazy and weird. Anyway, this is not a weather update channel. This is a book channel, and tonight I want to share with you guys all of the stuff that I have been reading for these last couple of weeks. I don't know when the last time I made a reading check-in was. I'm thinking it hasn't been more than a couple of weeks, but I have read so much in these last 2 weeks. So I figured I better get on here and share it with you guys, because my little basket where I put all of my things, you know, that I've read to talk to you guys about, it is full. Nothing else can fit in this basket. Actually, I had a reading goal for myself. My Goodreads goal this year was 100 books. I'm at 115. So I have just blown past that goal, and I still have, this is the 28th, yeah, I still got like 3.5 days left. So great reading year and great reading month for sure. All right, let me find, I didn't pull up my Goodreads notes. I think I'm gonna make a much smaller Goodreads goal this year. I think that my goal is just going to be 80. Like I said, last year I made a goal of 100, but some of the things I want to read this year are pretty big and seemingly complicated. So I'm going to just give myself a goal of 80, and then if I meet it in like August, then I might change the goal. So the first book, get this pulled up here we go. Okay, first book, Rule Britannia by Daphne du Maurier. So this kept my attention long enough to read it. She is a fantastic writer, but the story, no. It was just super underdeveloped. Based on like the little blurb, you know, that they give you, it just did not live up to the expectations that are given in the description of this book by any means. I ended up only giving it 2 stars. I read a little bit about the commentary and things on this book at the time. I think it was published in 1972 or 3. It sounds like it was kind of a political response and maybe even satire to some things that were going on in England at the time. So I guess in some ways it's kind of outdated, but in other ways the subject matter really isn't outdated, so she could have done so much more with it. So let me explain. The story is about a sort of a dystopia world where England has tried to unite with Europe and has failed. And now the US has come in and is not necessarily taking over England, but is just sort of helping them out, according to the leaders in charge. So the US honestly is pretty much occupying the UK at this time, but nobody actually says that. There are troops all over the place. This book is set in one specific small town in Cornwall, and there are troops all over. They have put up like a gate to get in and out of the area. You have to have a pass, and then after a while you just can't leave anymore. Everybody who they find around them in charge are American soldiers, and so then it just kind of addresses all of the different things that would happen if that actually happened. And the interesting thing is, and what makes it relevant for now, is many of these things actually did happen during the crisis, if you will, of 2020 to 2023-ish. During the time of the COVID lockdowns and restrictions, some areas faced a lot of restrictions on movement, restrictions on what could be purchased, rationing, forced quarantines, just a lot of freedom taken away or suspended. And a lot of those things that happened during the time of the COVID lockdowns are things that happened in this book. And I think that Daphne du Maurier really wanted to make kind of a political statement, a warning to the average citizen. She talks a lot about forming citizen groups, mags and bartering and not selling to people who are not, people who are loyal to the government. Those people, we don't do business with, and just sort of forming tiny little communities to assist one another. We call them mutual assistance groups, right? And the importance of that, and the importance of at one point, one of the male characters talks about how this whole thing would be different if he had a weapon. And so I think she was kind of hinting at the fact that they don't have as many freedoms with weapons as the US does. And I did think that was awfully interesting. No offense to my British friends, but I don't know how Britons never ever ever shall be slaves when the guys with the guns show up to enslave them if you have no way to defend yourself. And I think that was probably the message she was trying to put out here. And she did it sloppy and pretty much not even half done, maybe a quarter done. It was very underdeveloped. There could have been so much more to the story. Another part that was quite interesting, especially for the COVID conspiracy theorist, was that it seemed that the crisis in this story was a manufactured crisis. No one could really tell you, and even the reader never really knew what was going on. What was the crisis? Why were these communities on lockdown? Why was the UK having to join forces with the US? And why was it only US soldiers that they saw in charge? You never get answers to those questions. And on one hand, that puts you in just a similar frame of mind and psychological unease as the rest of the society who is facing this. Now, knowing Daphne du Maurier, that is probably actually what the point was. She's not known for underdeveloped stories. She's not known for a half-baked attempt at something. And I think that what really may have been going on here was that she was putting one of her psychological, experiments over on us and seeing if she could make us feel the same level of crazy, sort of, as was going on with these characters, wondering what is going on. And then it just stops and there's so many questions left unanswered. And it's very possible that whole thing was done on purpose, in which case she is a genius. But I don't know, didn't so much enjoy this. But I am glad I read this. This will be my read for du Maurier in December, put on by Mark at Book Time with Elvis, and I'm glad I read it. And you don't see this one around the US very often, but I do think that it was on my mother's bookshelf when I was really little. I think it belonged to my grandma. I don't think she has it anymore, so Mom, if you want that one, let me know. All right, next up, I read The Signalman by Charles Dickens. This was a group read for Dickens Christmas. And so I bought this, just kind of a cheapy, copy off of Amazon. I was kind of weirded out and thrilled by the pages. The weirded out part is that there's all these, pictures, paintings that they've put in as illustrations, but they have nothing to do with the story. And some of them aren't even from the same time period as the story, so it's just all really odd. But then the part that I was thrilled about is how big the words were. I didn't even need my glasses for that one. So that was really nice. But the story is just basically about a signalman guy, and there's some foreshadowing to, it's so short that I can't give you a whole lot of details, But it's an interesting little ghost story that's really kind of more of a something like coming to warn you of future circumstances and then it happens sort of a thing. I don't know. But it was a good one. But this is what I mean about the illustrations. Like, nowhere in this story is there a woman. Especially one with a shawl around her head sitting by the sea with a bird of some kind. Like, it's just random, super random illustrations. It's a self-published thing that was just put out for our enjoyment, I guess. But another thing that was interesting is after that story was done, there just happened to be a second story that says something like, "This is a surprise for you." What does it say? Yeah, it says, "Here is a free book as a bonus gift." And then it is The Three Strangers by Thomas Hardy. So there I got roped into reading Thomas Hardy again. And it was just a short story, just like a little village story. And, you know, it was good. It's kind of like just a scene that could have been out of probably any of his little stories. But yeah, I ended up giving this story 4 stars. The 4th star was given, it wasn't like the greatest story, but the 4th star was given because it totally didn't go where I thought it was gonna go. So I was like, all right, you can have a extra star for that. All right, next up was The Quiet Little Woman, A Christmas Story by Louisa May Alcott. This is a collection of 3 Christmas stories. I got this from my mom in my birthday box. And I enjoyed them. I actually enjoyed them like in order that they were listed. That was my in order of enjoyment. So I enjoyed the first story the most. And it kind of reminded me, if you're familiar with, what is that? Is it Samantha? The American Girl Samantha Christmas story. And it has like her friend that is like a lower class than she is, but Samantha makes a special Christmas for her, sort of a thing. It's kind of what that first story was about, and it reminded me of her, but they were all 3 really good stories. So read through that. I read The Wood at Midwinter by Susanna Clark. I read this last year and thought that I would read through it again this year to kind of see if I could maybe make some kind of like connection between this story and maybe some old story. And I don't know, not so much. Like, she talks about, like, in this story, one of the girls wishes for a son, and she's like a virgin with a midwinter child, and so it kind of like alludes to Christ, but then it also, then one of the animals asks, did she say son, like S-O-N, or son, S-U-N? So then it's alluding to, you know, like the birth of some other sun god or whatever. And so I'm honestly probably gonna put this one up on Pango. It's just a little too like Yule for me, you know, and just a little too pagan for me. Which wouldn't be that big of a deal, except for it also mixes in like the idea of Christ. Like, it could be Christ and it could be something pagan sort of a thing. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't want to mess with that. So I'll probably put that one up on Pango. So if you want to read it, go to my Pango. It's in the description box. All right, and then I read a story from this collection, the Penguin Book of Christmas Stories, which I was really wanting to read this story by this author, Angela Carter. And it's called The Ghost Ships. And I did not like this story at all. It was a short story. I just thought it was really stupid. It was super sarcastic. I did not like her tone. I did not like her writing. I did not like anything about this story. I did not enjoy it. I was really bummed. Super disappointed because I wanted to read a story by her. I'd heard such good things about her from a couple of my friends in the UK who have read Angela Carter. But yeah, I was not a fan. So I don't know if I will pick up anything by her. I think these little books, you know, compilations sometimes are to maybe get you interested in other authors, in, you know, the authors, maybe their other works, but I don't know. That was a huge turnoff. So don't know if I'll go back to anything by Angela Carter anytime soon. All right, next up is a book that can't be my favorite book of the year because it was my favorite book of last year. But that is The Winter Ghosts by Kate Moss. It can be my favorite reread of the year though, and it just might be. This book is so stinking good. So I read it again this year. Last year I only gave it 4 stars. This year I gave it 5 stars. I really feel like this book can be like 100 years from now, this is going to be one of those that's a classic. I really think so. This is going to be one of those that like pulls people into reading other Kate Moss stories. I don't know, something about the writing of this story was just, it had a feel that seemed like I was reading something from a non-romantic Victorian. I don't know. I love this story so much. So a guy, it takes place right after one of the wars. I think it's World War I. And this guy is he's from England, but he's up in France, and he gets stranded. He gets like, it's snowy and he's up in the mountains, and he ends up having to walk into a village. And the village seems very kind of old-timey, and just seems like it is maybe from like the 15th or 16th century, and it just has that feel, right? And so he books into a room, and he's invited to go to a celebration that the village is having that evening. It's like a yearly celebration that they do, and when he goes, everything kind of gets weird for him. The story takes place over just a short time, and when it's all said and done, you don't know if you were really dealing with ghosts or if, it was in his head, sort of a thing. But it tells a little bit, it gets you kind of a door into the Cathars, which was a persecuted religious group in France, and there's some really horrific things that went on with them, and just kind of gets you into that history. The whole atmosphere of this book is so good. I really literally will probably read it every single winter. It was even better this time around, and anyway, I highly recommend this. It's not a Christmas book, but it's definitely a winter book. Like, you will not get the same feel if you were to read this like in July, if you live in the Northern Hemisphere anyway. Fantastic story. I would definitely read it when things are cold and dreary. Next up was Tolkien's The Father Christmas Letters. This was fun to go through. This is a collection of letters and illustrations that Tolkien wrote to his children over the course of several decades. You see things in his handwriting like this, and then they write it out, they type it out here. And then there's just interesting illustrations that he has made to describe some of these really funny stories that take place up at the North Pole. This one came from like a pretend stamp that he drew on the envelope, was this, and then the bottom says like 2 cents or whatever, 20 cents. And it was just such a neat book to go through. Once I read several of the stories, I kind of got to the point where the stories were sort of running together, and I kind of got bored with the stories. But I think that if I would have read it over the course, if I would have read it over the course of decades, if I would have read it just even over the course of days, I wouldn't have felt that way about it. So it's probably a collection that is better to dip in and out of throughout the season, rather than to sit and read it all in one go. You will probably appreciate the humor and imagination of the letters more if you read it a little bit at a time. But yes, 5 stars for that one. Then I reread this collection of Christmas stories by Agatha Christie, Malouin. It's a collection of stories and poems all about Christmas, Christmas time, and just the birth of Jesus. This time I really paid attention to how so many of the stories were really about Mary, and that Agatha Christie was putting herself in the place of Mary, in imagination, right? And just imagining how all this stuff would have gone down from the mother's point of view. I noticed that she really focused a lot on the value of life. She addressed the evils of abortion a couple of times. She talked about someone with special needs and just, the value of that person's life. And she just focused a lot on Mary as a mother, and just the emotions and the things that she would have been going through, kind of over the span of her whole life. It was just a really interesting take on the kind of normal things we read about at Christmas time, and I thought it was really good. Like I said, I had read it before, but last year I was just focused on different things, and I picked up on more, this year than I did last time. So the more I read Agatha Christie, the more I realize what a huge reader she had to have been herself. She knew so much about history and literature and the Bible. It's really impressive, actually. It just comes out in so many of her writings, so many references to things and allusions that you don't even really get, unless you've read that thing. And it's really impressive, actually, the amount of writing she put out, coupled with the amount of reading she had to have done. She must have had a pretty cozy life once she remarried, because she just put out so much. I'm very curious if she has journals and diaries. If she did, I doubt they're anywhere public. I could be wrong, but it seems like some parts of her life are super private. But man, just a mind full of a whole lot of really crazy things. I've been praying that God would let me live a really long life, because I just want to learn so many things. So good for her that she was able to do that. Next, I did my annual reading of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I read through the first two ghosts, and then it was actually Christmas, and my husband got me this big collection of Christmas stories, and so on Christmas afternoon I finished reading it from this. I thought this edition was so beautiful. The edges of it have these pretty paintings painted of they're the illustrations that I love in my copy, my paperback copy, but these are the pretty painted sprayed edges with those illustrations. I just think this is so neat, and so I sat here and read the rest of it in this great big gigantic book and really loved it. This edition actually has 5 of Dickens' Christmas stories in it: A Christmas Carol, The Chimes, Cricket on the Hearth, The Battle of Life, and The Haunted Man. And I have not read those last 2, and The Chimes and Cricket on the Hearth I think I've only read 1 each, so maybe next season I will read this whole thing. So that was one of the several books I got for Christmas. I will make a video here shortly and show you everything else. But here's something else I got for Christmas. I got this book called The Birds Christmas Carol by Kate Douglas Wiggin. And she is author of Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm, which I have not read. That's kind of, what I know her from. And this was the 25th anniversary edition of this book. It was first published in 1886, and then this one was published in 1912, in April of 1912, same month and year as the sinking of the Titanic, so that's weird. But the illustrations on this are so pretty. Each page has this pretty holly up here at the top and bottom. It's just a really beautiful edition, meant to be given at Christmas, I'm sure. But it's just lovely. I read it and I really enjoyed just the neat antiqueness of it all. The story itself was sort of hit and miss. I think I gave this one 4 stars, but honestly, probably more like 3. The story itself was sweet, but it did cause me to reflect on just the Victorians and how they did things, because we talk a lot about how they were obsessed with death, I don't think it was necessarily that they were obsessed with death as much as they just sort of accepted it in a way that we struggle to accept it. It was coming. There was really nothing that they could do about it. A lot of times their cures were just as bad as their ailments. And so death for young people was more common, happened more often than it does for us. I don't think there's any way that someone would publish a story like this for Christmas time, something that is supposed to be heartwarming and make you feel good, because there is, a death in the book that is difficult. And I think it's just kind of like the difference in what we see as maybe a happy ending, right? For us, a happy ending is if it all ends happy. Everything's fine in the end, no matter how many trials they had to go through, it all turned out well, and we are not emotionally inconvenienced. And I think that was a very different picture for Victorians. I think for them, a happy ending is, the death is neither here nor there, as far as whether or not there's a happy ending, because the happy ending was kind of more about looking back on what the person contributed to life while they were here, what they, gave, the legacy they left, the memory of them. That kind of, if you could end a story with a happy memory, a happy thought, and that person's life was, worth it, then you have got a happy ending. For us, it doesn't seem to matter as much, what they did to affect the world. It's what they did to affect us by dying, right? So it's just interesting sort of thoughts I was thinking there along those lines. I don't think they were obsessed. I think they were just more accepting of it, and therefore they could talk about it more readily. I think in our time, we are so busy trying to outrun death, to avoid death, to cheat death, that we're afraid. But I think they had come to terms with it, and that allowed them to just sort of live and think much differently than we do. I did take 1 star off because of the way that the mother of the large family has the stigma of being overworked, exhausted, uneducated. She doesn't know how to form a sentence, apparently. She is grumpy, she's unsatisfied with life, and it's all because she's got 9 kids. Well, I got 9 kids, and I don't have those same issues. Granted, I'm also not washing all my own laundry by hand, but still, when you got 9 kids, you're not washing laundry. You're not. They are. Regardless if you live in the Victorian times or 2025. But I'm tired of that. I hate that stigma. I hate it in old books. I hate it in new books. It's a dumb stigma. It's not fair. It's mostly the uneducated thing that just bugs me. As if you would not believe how many times over the years we have heard, "Don't you know how that happens?" Or something similar, as if we are uneducated idiots who don't know how babies come into the world. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Most of the big family moms I know are super educated, and I'm going to believe that many of them were in her day as well. So, just no. Okay, finally, I've been reading the Beverly Lewis series, the postcard, and then the second one is called The Crossroads, which I am reading right now. And I haven't read anything by Beverly Lewis in a really long time. I read this first almost 20 years ago, and the one that goes with it. And the reason why I even grabbed these in the first place was I was at my bookstore and they had the second one on the Christmas shelf, because it does take place at Christmas time. I used to have every Beverly Lewis book, everything she ever put out, and everything that she ever put out for teens and adults, as well as every time she would come out with a new book, within days, I would have it. I would let my husband know and he'd pick it up on the way home from work. I was obsessed. I loved her stories. And then somewhere in there, they just kind of started going downhill. They just became very simple, and I just wasn't into them anymore. I felt like the writing became kind of juvenile, and I just kind of chalked it up to, her age, and that may be a big part of it. That she was writing these stories, when she was just a little older than me, and then now 25 years later, she's very elderly, and maybe she is not, her writing quality has gone down. I don't know, and maybe that's a stigma, so I apologize if that offended anyone. But that was what was in my head. However, I feel kind of differently about things now, and it could really still be that. But when I read through this book, it was first published in 1999. She dealt with some really harsh realities of living the Amish life, right? So if you lived through the 90s, one of the sort of trends in the 90s was like cozy cottage homemaking. It's kind of coming back, actually. And so the idea of being an Amish person, living on a farm, waking up, with the sun, and working in your garden, and baking your own bread, and canning your own stuff, and going to, to town to sell your wares, and wearing your apron, and carrying your basket, and covering your hair, and all the things, just sounds so idyllic, right? And just so like, oh, I want that life. And, having your husband come in for lunch and sit at the table, and, this big burly hard-working man, and you're serving him a big bowl of gruel and crusty bread or whatever. You just had this image in your head, right? And I think people got that, and many were like, I want to be Amish, right? Then Beverly Lewis comes out with these books. At the very beginning, she was the only one writing these, and she wrote them well. But one of the things I remember was reading a testimony by her in something, I don't know what. She attends Assembly of God. She's part of the Assemblies of God, and so are we. And so it's possible that I just read it like in a, Assemblies of God magazine or something. But anyway, she was talking about how she was writing these books as a ministry, as kind of a witnessing tool to the Amish community, to sort of point out some of the actual toxic behaviors, and to sort of help them to open their eyes and see, hey, this is toxic, normal people don't live this way, and here's how you can get out. And I just remember reading that. I remember thinking, okay, this is kind of a great ministry, right? Because like an Amish person, like they'd love to read a book about Amish people. Like nobody writes about Amish people, right? And anyway, and so her early books really did address some pretty harsh things. And this one, it talks about the practice of witch doctors, hex doctors. They call them powwows, and it's just kind of like a little like chanting session spell sort of thing that they would get these witch doctors, and still do, it's like it's a thing, to perform, to heal people, to clear your house of spirits, to get rid of stuff you don't want. I don't know, just crazy weird witchcraft really is what it is. And that many of the Amish were okay with this, and the reason why is a long drawn out thing I won't go into, but and obviously like, no, that's not okay. And so in this story, she's addressing that, and I'm sort of, passively trying to minister to anyone who may read it. The thing that I'm finding is that kind of hard-hitting, maybe things would be seen as an attack on the Amish community, those aren't in these newer books. She's not going there. In those newer books, everything's fine, and the Amish community's fine, and it's great if you want to be Amish, or it's great if you're not, and there's nobody step on any toes, right? Because the age of political correctness and has come and implanted itself, and now we dare not say anything that could be considered hate speech, even if it's an opinion, and even if it's biblical. So I kind of think that maybe that's what I'm actually picking up on in the newer books, is that they're too soft, and she's sort of going back a little bit on her message to the Amish, and whatever, fine, but they're just not measuring up to what the old books were. And because I thought for a while, like maybe it's just that her writing style has always been juvenile and I've just grown up. But no, this was a really richly written, richly described, well done story. It's just that they're not so much like that anymore. So if you've read a recent Beverly Lewis, like in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, let me know if you really enjoyed one, because I probably haven't picked up anything by her that she's published since 2020, definitely not since like 2022. So if you read something new, let me know. I would love to give her another try on these newer books. But for now, I'm definitely going to be going back to the older things and rereading them because I've always enjoyed reading that. I like reading about the lifestyle, but learning that, you know, just because it looks all good on the outside, there is some yucky stuff beneath, which actually is probably the same in most places, right? The grass is not always greener, but I really have enjoyed these over the years. So hopefully I'll get to read some more and enjoy some more. All right, so that is it for my reading. That is probably going to be my last reading wrap up for 2025. Is that crazy? Yes, that is crazy. Like I said, I'm finishing up the part 2 of this series, and then I don't know, I might just kind of jump into some of my stuff for 2026 for January. You know, like I said, I'm like 15 or 16 books over my goal for 2025 as far as how many books that I wanted to read. And so I'm kind of floundering, like, I have no goals. What do I do? And my mood reading obviously happened in the last couple of weeks. So anyway, we'll see. Whatever it is, you'll find out. But I hope everyone is doing well and enjoying cozy season. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.